Welcome, fellow hypnotists and NLP people and everyone else. This is the Brain Software Podcast, episode 222, emanating to the universe from the Hypnotic World Epicenter, Toronto, Canada. I'm Chris Thompson, and today Mike, Mandel, and I will talk all about a career in stage hypnosis and all kinds of other related fun things. So stay tuned.
But first, our disclaimer. We are not doctors and dispense zero medical information or advice. Even the fact that we just mentioned medical information does not qualify as dispensing medical information or advice, and neither does that. Always consult with your own dentist before attempting anything we happen to mention in passing. Lucci.
Hey man, what's happening, Scroll? Just stole 6 books from the library, man. Just sliced up a black and white photograph of a man your age. But enough about Dealey Plaza. I think you know where we're going with this bag. So whatever did happen to that old tranquility we used to know prior to November 22nd, 1963?
These are days of victory! So let's welcome to the center of the chiropractic table a man who's become a leading authority on SI joint pain. A man who thought he wouldn't be here today at all.
Sadly true.
But a man who's arranged an awesome Indian restaurant fest tomorrow, followed by a whiskey tasting. So here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Mandel!
Yes, notice the scaled down way I'm doing it, Chris, with the SI joint problem.
Yeah,
I'm in considerable pain.
SI, sacroiliac
joint. It's where your sacrum, the lower part of your spine that connects to the tailbone, which is actually part of the sacrum, where it connects to your hip structure. And it's just shot. Anyway, I'm way better. I've had 2 great chiropractic treatments, which is a great place to go when you have that, a chiropractor.
And it's just one of these things, right? I know as I told you today, my wife had this a few years back when she was teaching fitness classes.
Mine was worse.
It was just horrendous pain for better part of a week.
Oh, totally, man.
Yeah.
2 days ago, Wednesday, we're recording today on a Friday, but 2 days ago, I actually thought, what if this is just my life from now on? I just feel like this every day. It was horrible. So today we're talking about stage hypnosis, and we're taking a bit of a side shuffle. And we're going to talk about stage hypnosis, what it involves. So if you want to get into it, we'll give you some keys onto how you can make that possible.
Yes.
And what about usual banter and promotions?
Well, we do have a special announcement. I mean, this man has decided he's coming out of retirement. He's starting to do stage hypnosis shows again, and that's why we're doing... I'm kidding.
Incorrect.
Mike's plan is to never, ever again do another stage hypnosis show.
I don't even step on a stage
Do you
again.
remember when the Sunday newsletter we sent out, we actually got a lot of really good feedback on that because some people misunderstood it. Like, do you want to give a quick recap of the main point behind that?
Oh, the last one?
Yeah, the one. I don't know if you remember.
I do remember.
I'm talking about the one where you said that
about hypnosis.
Your job versus what's fun.
Well, yeah. When you have interests are things you do entirely for fun. And people found it difficult to understand that hypnosis isn't really an interest of mine at all. Now, it was.
It is
no,
an
it's
interest,
not.
But not in the same way that it was. It's an
not
interest
even remotely
to teach.
the same.
It's an interest to
No, but that's the teaching.
educate.
That's the teaching. That's the interest.
Yeah, but doing
hypnosis itself, like I said, if I have an evening off, it's I'd love to read a hypnosis book. I couldn't care less. I love doing hypnosis. I love teaching hypnosis
and doing these podcasts and talking
obviously
about it.
Hypnosis was an interest at one point, or I wouldn't even have gotten involved in it in the first place. But interests are things that we do purely for fun. Not necessarily hobbies. You know, I can't say, walking through the woods, which I love doing. Can't say, it's a hobby. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but
true.
I love hypnosis. I find it's a fascinating thing, but it isn't something I choose to do on an evening off.
Exactly. There are aspects of hypnosis that still interest you in the form of teaching it and refining your skills,
replicating excellence through students,
and coming up with new ideas to teach and new ways to teach it. Things like that. I'm talking about making jokes on this show here, tying it to everyday life, that kind of stuff.
All that.
But yeah, you're not going to sit down and go, it's my day off. I think I'll watch a stage hypnosis show. Like dentists don't sit around and watch other
example.
dentists.
It was an actual case. My phone rings at 10:30 in the morning. It was my stepbrother. And he said, "Are you watching Channel 57? I said, "No, I'm actually working on something." "There's a hypnotist on." I said, "Rick, if I was a dentist and you saw a dentist on television, would you be phoning to tell me?" "Well, it's a dentist on TV.
He's doing a root canal."
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So, point being, Mike did stage hypnosis for a long time, and he's kindly volunteered that we're going to talk a lot about
We
it
are.
here, which is really cool.
I'll dispense 40
And
plus years of info.
part of the banter, we're actually in the midst of producing a video series right now. I think we're going to put at least the first, if not the first and second video up on YouTube for free. But we've taken a stage hypnosis show, one of the last ones Mike ever did. I think you probably only did maybe 3 or 4 total shows after this one.
Well, I don't know. It was 2016.
Yeah, it's a show from like 2016.
I retired in 2018.
Yeah, it was one of your best
Right.
shows ever, in my opinion, because I've seen a lot of them. They're all so amazing. But this one, we decided to take it and actually create like a director's cut. So here's a snippet of the show. Here's why that was happening. Here's the next snippet
All
of the
the
show.
commentary, yeah,
Here's
yeah.
how Mike built up the idea of interest in volunteering to come up onto the stage. Then what happens on stage? How do you get them into hypnosis?
Exactly.
Even though you're telling them one thing, some other stuff happening
There's
behind
things
the
going
scenes.
on in the background.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we're going to start talking a bit about this here, and then we're going to suggest that you check out the actual video that we published to YouTube. But let's move on.
We have
Okay.
one promotional thing. You just want to remind everybody about AOH, but just before you
right,
do,
of course.
I'm just going to crack my neck because it's all locked, and you might actually hear it. This can be interesting.
Oh, wow.
Did you hear
Ooh,
that?
Yeah, I did hear
It's
that.
fantastic.
I'm sure the
It's like
microphone picked
C5.
that up.
Beautiful.
All right, yeah, we actually took a look, and our Architecture of Hypnosis class is more than half full for May 2023. You can check it out on our events page of our website. So just go to mikemandelhypnosis.com/events, and it'll be there. I think also /class still redirects there. But either way, this is our 5-day Architecture of Hypnosis. Now, we're going to be talking mostly about stage hypnosis in this podcast.
Yeah.
We do not teach specifically stage hypnosis. We teach general hypnosis that you can then slot into anything you want to do. If you want to become a hypnotherapist, if you want to be a consulting hypnotist to help people make positive changes rather than fixing traumas and stuff, if you want to be an entertainer or a street hypnotist, the same principles apply. Once you know the principles, you can apply them to any kind of
Right.
hypnosis that you want. If you just want to tell better stories or be a conversational hypnotist, it's a simple thing to learn these skills. So with that said, come to Toronto. You'll have a blast with
You'll have
us
the best
in
week of your
May.
life.
And we're going to move on to the 3 think tank words
Yes,
before
we
we
are.
then jump right into the
Now,
content.
let's be honest again. In the interest of full transparency, once again, I did not draw from Sava Bukacek's think tank.
Because it
which
was too painful.
Because my back was just too bad. It took me so long to write the podcast notes because of the stupid sacroiliac thing. So here's our 3 think tank words chosen from a random noun generator online. They are, and I'll give you all 3, and then we're going to unpack these. Deal, D-E-A-L.
Okay.
Laborer. Range.
All right.
So what does deal mean to you?
deal to me, well, I think about somebody dealing cards.
Yeah, that's what I thought
This
too.
deck of cards
Yeah,
in
yeah.
a portrait clip right here.
Yes.
Dealing cards. Whoa, stuff's falling off my desk. It makes me think of randomness, I suppose, because when you're dealing from a shuffle deck, in theory, you shouldn't know what you're getting unless you
Right,
fix the
right.
cards in a certain way. Fix the cards in a certain way. Yeah, randomness. You have to play the hand you're dealt. Which
Oh,
is a
that's
nice
interesting.
metaphor in
That's
life,
interesting.
right?
Because I heard a guy, Steve Brown, say, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it.
I like that.
That's a great quote, isn't it?
That's-
So
yes.
what cards are you dealt? They're the ones you have to play. Now, here's where it goes with me. When I think of dealing, I remember that back in 1975, when I started doing stage hypnosis, I was doing it as a mentalist as well.
Yes.
And I did a lot of mentalism with cards because they're so easy to carry in your pocket. You can create amazing things, amazing effects. Have people grab cards. You can tell them from 20 feet
Yeah,
away
the
what
only
they
prop
are.
you need.
Yeah,
is
it's the only
right
prop
there.
you need. I
Yeah.
got rid of so much of my magic stuff, my mentalism stuff, because a deck of cards, I can create wonders with it. The reason this is significant is one of the things I do is a poker deal. I do a few different ones that freak people out. If you're a hypnotist, as you'll see, adding something like this to what you do your little bit of Darren Brown, your little bit of Amazing Kreskin, it can add prestige and
Yeah.
make your hypnotic work even
I
better.
think that's and it comes back to that concept of heteroaction that we've talked about before, right? That
Yeah.
if people go, they have some moment where they believe you have some skill, even if it's unrelated, and Cialdini talks about this a lot, even if what you have as a skill is logically disconnected from hypnosis, the fact that you can amaze people in this one weird way
Right.
must mean that this other weird thing, hypnosis, you could also do. And it just establishes this belief pattern, which is part of heteroaction,
Exactly.
in my opinion. So, yeah, really cool. Okay, deal.
Laborer.
Next one,
Laborer. Okay, so a laborer to me, it's someone who's doing simple tasks, maybe repetitive. whether it's building a house or whatever, there has to be the laborers who lug the rocks out of your garden and all of these things.
Yeah.
But this is foundational stuff. Without laborers, you didn't get the frickin' pyramids built.
Yeah. If you don't have somebody mining the ingredients to make silicon chips, you don't have computers.
See,
You don't,
tech guy here. So maybe you have to put in the labor, although laboring can give birth to something as well. Can give birth to new ideas, which is a good deal. Use the first one again.
Absolutely. In fact, let me give you a little example of labor. So, Timothy and I have been working really hard to create a business. It's called PYKTHOS, which originates from this podcast, PYKTHOS. It's a business it's under the MMH umbrella to help hypnotists actually establish their online presence and their marketing and basically learn how to do it correctly, and all working together with one common set of tools so that even though you know what you should do, the implementation part becomes very easy because we're all working together with one set of tools. I mean, it's sort of like, I don't know, I will skip the metaphor. But we had to do the labor. We had to do the hard work, roll up our sleeves, get our hands dirty with the tools to learn how to use it correctly so that we could then have the intelligence and experience to teach.
Right,
if we hadn't done the work, which is the laborer, we'd still be stuck going, I don't know how to do this because it's a different system.
Which leads to the next word perfectly, range. Now, I'm not thinking shooting range, which is surprising.
Originally, but now
what
I get
I'm thinking
it.
is,
you get a range of responses.
The range of responses is going to build on your preparation. And what you have labored on now builds in requisite variety, so you have more possible responses.
That's true. The more labor you do in a different set of ways, like if all you do is dig holes with a shovel, you're only good at digging holes with a shovel, and you don't have much range of skill. But if you put in the work to do a bunch of different things, all of a sudden the range of things you can do is enormous.
It just expands.
And now the world is, as my mother-in-law likes to say, the world is your oyster.
Brilliant. Right? Yeah. So let's get on to stage. That's right. Yeah. No, it's not original. The world is her oyster and yours.
Yeah, it's not original. I had not heard it.
Can't
until
believe
she
you're trying to claim that she came up with it.
Can't believe
Google
you thought it had a little wheel.
Yeah, there's a little wheel dragging the ground. So what is a career in stage hypnosis? This is very interesting because when I started performing in 1975, in fact, what is today, the 27th or something?
Today is January 27th.
Well, the 29th
would be how many years?
Well, 75 to now. That's beyond me.
So that would be
85, 95, 2005,
plus
2015.
23. So that's
47 years ago.
So I was going to say 78 years, Mike.
Shut up.
Yeah, a lot of years. Yeah.
Well, when I started, it wasn't even called hypnosis because it was Ontario and hypnosis was illegal in Ontario.
48 years. Right?
48 years. Yeah. So we called it power of suggestion. We called it mentalism. And but the mentalism all tied in with it. But what is a career in stage hypnosis? Here's the thing, guys. It doesn't mean you're going to necessarily quit your job. Mm-hmm. You can do this kind of thing part-time and dramatically supplement your income by if you can start getting booked. It is an option because it enables you to take up a hobby, and stage hypnosis as a hobby can be a lot of fun when it's still interesting for you and you haven't done 5,000 shows, but then you can begin to bring in maybe more money than your regular job, and that's when you make the transition.
Buddy, and it goes beyond that too, because let's think to one of our best friends in this industry, Jason Lynette.
Yep.
He started by doing...
He was a theater manager.
Yeah, he was a theater manager. He got into hypnosis, but he was doing high school shows and stuff like that. I think, in fact, he was very well known for doing a lot of different high school shows. And that to him at some point became like, I don't know if this is something that I want to keep up forever.
Right.
He ended up then segueing into hypnotherapy. Of course, he had to learn a whole new set of skills. And this was many, many years ago. He's a very skilled guy.
Yeah, he is.
A lot of range. There we go.
There we are.
The word. So started with stage hypnosis. Started doing hypnosis with clients for generative work, therapeutic work, things like that. And now look at him. He is one of the best in the business teaching the business.
Yeah.
And he also taught the business of hypnosis, but now, and you're probably not following it as closely as I am because we talk about business all the time. He's teaching entrepreneurs and people like that how to use the techniques of influence in growing their business.
Oh, interesting.
Which is really interesting. So it's not even formal hypnosis in that layer, in that side of the business. But guess where it all came from? Starting in stage hypnosis, right? So it's really interesting. And that's why he's such a darn good entertainer, right? And so are you. When you get the entertainment skills and you can bring those into other things that you do.
Yes, Jason bringing in his background in theater.
Yeah.
He's a very good speaker and he's very articulate.
100%. And then also our other really good friend. In fact, our best friend in this business is Michael C. Anthony.
Right.
And he is essentially exclusively a performer, mentalism and stage hypnosis. And he does very big venues.
He does. In fact, let's look at the kind of venues. This is why, even though there have never been more stage hypnotists in the world than right now, I mean, I would venture that 95%, I'm going to really push it here, 98% of all the stage hypnotists who've ever lived are alive today. That's how
might be true.
Massively, this is all spread.
Yeah, I did before. I just wanted
word.
to make sure I closed down on my point, though, that Michael C. Anthony also has great comedy. So I think as doing something on stage, you learn how to be really funny on the fly.
Well, we're going to get to that.
And I just want to make sure I seeded it at least. So you develop this range, there it is again, of how to insert comedy on the fly in what you're doing, which carries off the stage into everyday life.
Everyday life, which makes you more popular and interesting. That's great.
Sorry.
That's very good. Yeah. No, don't apologize.
Sorry for apologizing.
So the reason why it's still a lucrative market, despite all the hypnotists out there doing this, especially in North America right now, and maybe Europe too, I don't know. Think about it. You can do schools, which means universities, colleges. There's high schools as well. Not public schools. I did a couple of those in Quebec. Grade 8 kids, but not really very often. There's nightclubs and bars. There are private parties in homes, and I did a couple of those.
Especially for wealthy people.
Yes, and I did one where the guy paid me, something $2,000 to come over and do an hour of hypnosis by his swimming pool for his family. That was
amazing.
He paid cash.
And then there was the lady that invited you over for dinner just so that you could do a
don't
free,
go there. So anyway, private
show.
Parties and corporate events are the big ticket items. Michael C. Anthony makes a fortune on his corporate events. He's getting paid in U.S. dollars as well.
Yeah. In fact, I would say that almost weekly, usually through our Facebook page or something like that, or email, people will say, hey, I want to hire Mike for the thing. And we just, no, he doesn't do that anymore. And we refer it out to one of our friends who lives actually close enough. Yeah.
Right. That's good. Now, what are the advantages of this line of work? Well, if you do it full-time, you get full-time. If this becomes your only source of income, it becomes full-time income for a part-time job. I mean, literally, you can work twice a week and make more than you can in most jobs. I'm saying that because when I started in January 1975, I was working at Bell Canada. I was making $90 Canadian a week. That was my take home.
And how did that compare to, say, minimum wage?
And then my it was minimum wage.
So that was minimum wage.
I did my first show and was getting paid $100 for a show back then, that was a week's worth of pay.
And I'll put it into today's terms. So minimum wage in Ontario right now is, I think it's $15 an hour or something
Canadian,
like that. So if you were working a full-time job, 2,000 hours a week, that'd be $30,000 Canadian per year. So let's say that was your equivalent to today's pay. So instead of making $90 a week, you were making $100 a show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then it was amazing, and I was having fun because I was doing universities and colleges and stuff. But anyway, that
1 week pay for one show.
Yeah. And so the other advantage, a great advantage, and this to me, he understands this completely as well, is being your own boss is a huge thing of freedom. I'm not under the gun at Bell Canada where I can lose my job because I went and made some changes in some documents because they were not giving me the service I'd requested. My unpublished number at home was being published, and they were giving it out. There were people I didn't want finding me. So I nearly lost my job, but my dad was a bigwig, and he phoned them, and some meetings were held, and I was brought back in. You don't worry about that stuff when you're self-employed.
100%.
You're not going to fire yourself. And if you do, you can rehire yourself.
Yeah, we fire. Here, Mike, you're fired.
Thanks. I just rehired myself.
Oh, you just there you go. That's how it works. So here's the deal. Oh, I got another word in there.
Nice.
2 to 3 so far. Here's the deal. You can be dealt a certain hand in life, right? And you don't have to leave it exactly the way it is and just slot yourself in. You can trade in some cards if you want, and you can say, you know what, I want to be an entrepreneur instead. I don't want to work
draw
for
a
the
few
man.
new cards.
Yeah,
from the deck.
so Mike just described stage hypnosis as working for yourself. Well, now what we do is also working for ourselves, but it's not stage hypnosis anymore. It's something else, right? And it's still tons of fun.
It's progressed.
It's much more fun to us than for you going on stage. I mean, I could probably be your manager and get you stage gigs all the time, and then your life would suck because you'd be
on the road again.
Yeah.
But listen, that's one of the advantages of being on the road. If you're young and you take up a stage hypnosis career like I did, I was on the road a lot.
And you had a blast for how long? Decades.
I didn't get tired of it for close to 40 years.
Yeah.
And it was about the last 5 years. I was getting older. I didn't feel like traveling so much. And I was doing more keynotes. So I'd be in Miami Beach doing a keynote one day, flying out to Toronto. The next day I'm in Vancouver doing a keynote. That was great. That was a lot of fun because I didn't hypnotize anyone. But I cannot negate how much fun those first 35 years were, traveling with rock bands and being on the road, staying in hotels and just having a laugh, man.
Watch the brilliance with which I bring in the third word.
All right.
When what you're doing starts out as fun, anything, let's say it's not even stage hypnosis anymore, whatever your job is.
Right.
If you love your job, because what we say, it's a great idea to love what you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when what you're doing for an income doesn't feel like fun anymore, it feels like you're a laborer.
That's a red flag.
There you go. Maybe that's when you say, hey, I don't have to keep doing this. You know, if you dealt yourself that hand of this is what I do, stage hypnosis. Okay, great. If you love it for 25 years and then now you feel, okay, it feels like labor. Change it up, do something else.
That's it. And remember, I chunked up.
Yeah.
I used to say, I'm a stage hypnotist. I'm a stage... horrible.
I think it's
And then
important,
I reframed it as I'm a communicator.
I think it's really
And a communicator led to me writing as an opera critic for Ontario Arts Review and a wine writer and a wine judge, and then was writing blogs, all these
and
things.
And the keynotes, all the corporate keynotes
communicating,
and stuff.
Police trainer, all communication.
I think really twice I already said, I think it's really important that I stopped myself because I was interrupting you. And people comment, they go, you guys keep interrupting each other. Yes, it'll probably never change.
It's our style.
Deal with it.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to understand.
You said deal.
Yeah, deal with it.
Again.
Exactly. There
Yeah.
you go. I'm on fire
You
today.
are.
Yeah. Now I forgot what I was going to
said
say.
it's
No,
important
I
to understand.
I think it's really important to understand that when Mike did the little intro, that Sunday newsletter I asked you to tell about, and the whole idea that you don't enjoy hypnosis anymore, at least certainly not stage hypnosis, there are angles of it that you do. This is not knocking it and saying, oh, it's boring. No, it's just that Mike doesn't want to do that as his job anymore. There are other ways that we can still be hypnotic and teach hypnosis and have a lot of fun without him having to go out on stage,
get ramped up on stage,
or constantly be having to read books about hypnosis because there are other things in life. And I think as a general rule of thumb, when something that you think is a great thing, like everyone starts something new. In fact, we were just talking about this in the kitchen earlier, that I changed up the way I'm doing my workouts.
Right.
And I said, you know what? Right now, the change that I've made feels new again. I love it. Ultimately, at some point, it won't feel new and I won't love it anymore and I'll do something else.
It's time to move on. Now, that's interesting. You remember I was a runner. I discovered running in my 30s. And found out I was a natural runner. And I wasn't a huge runner, but I ran 4 times a week, 10K each time. So 6 miles 4 times a week. That's a pretty serious runner, not huge. I didn't race or anything like that. But when I started getting shin splints, my knees started to go, guess what? Running wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
So I moved out of that. So change
You have a range of things to choose
Now we got to
from
move
in
on
life.
this.
All
So
right.
I said you can travel the country or the world. Hypnosis took me to all over the Caribbean, took me to Bermuda for one show. Australia, 5 tours of Australia. Jamaica, that was two keynotes. Dominican Republic, all over the U.S. A blast through Texas and Louisiana and
the UK, Australia,
5 tours of Britain,
Canada, United States,
all over Canada. The only part of Canada I have not gone to is the Yukon. That's it. But I've done Northwest Territories.
You did a show in Newfoundland?
I've done many in Newfoundland.
That's awesome.
Memorial University. University. Told a guy, I still remember, he was a huge Toronto Maple Leafs fan. And he had a Leaf jersey on, and I told him it was a Montreal Canadiens jersey.
And he
pulled it off and
off.
stomped on it. And it was just brilliant. So yes, you get to travel, you get to meet amazing people, and people will treat you like a star. I mean, they really, really will. They'll ask you to go for dinner with them, they do all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of advantages. So let's assume I've convinced you on the veracity of the usefulness of a career in stage hypnosis.
Okay.
What do you need to do? Well, first of all, become a good hypnotist. You don't have to be a great hypnotist.
Good general skills.
General skills of all the hypnotic arts, from forensics to working with pain and so on. Stage hypnosis is the least demanding, meaning you can have a skeleton version of what hypnosis is with some good inductions, some ways of keeping the people safe, some post-hypnotic suggestion, calibration. You don't need a full box of tools for it.
Because the thing that you do need to be an expert at is holding people's attention.
This is just
and
it.
having that prestige. And if you have that, your hypnotic toolbox can be quite thin simply because you have the law of large numbers in your favor. You're bringing
Right.
up a bunch of
25, 30 people.
You only need some of them to be really good subjects.
Excellent. Now, what you would need, just some good skill sets, fairly rapid induction method, one or
Yeah.
two. Jeff Ronning, his book on stage hypnosis, he's got some great stuff on this there. So just look it up, Ronning, Jeff Ronning. He actually uses a modified Elman induction instead of progressive muscle relaxation. It's really
Oh my
solid.
God. Can you imagine if someone did that on stage? Okay, come up and volunteer, and you've done all this funny stuff. And now,
you're
imagine
getting
all
sleepy.
those
Now you're-
tiny muscles in your
Stop, don't go
eyelid.
there.
Yeah, it's like
So now-
everyone in the audience going, boring.
You also need multiple suggestibility tests because they are going to create heteroaction for
Right.
you. I used to use 4 in my early days, 4 suggestibility
Hand
tests in a row.
clasp.
Hand clasp, fingers.
Did you do
magnetic fingers?
magnetic
Did that, but I
fingers?
did it this way. The
And then
knuckles
the
touching.
spinning hands.
I did, automatic motion, the spinning
Oh, the eye
hands.
roll. You did the eyes rolling up in the back of your
a bunch
head.
just different
The
things threw
stomping of
together.
the feet and the hand. That's all really
Yeah,
funny.
adding all that.
And-
But you need that to build heteroaction. That makes it work. You need some routines to use with groups as well as individuals, because
Right.
doing routines with groups will develop heteroaction and homoaction, and it will enable you to identify your best subjects
Right.
for what will follow.
Which this video series we're putting together, oh my goodness, I hadn't watched it in years. And I remember now, because I remember one of the guys, his name was Jamie, and he was amazing. And you picked him up immediately when you were doing the group stuff, and then you brought him up, fired a PGO spike, sleep now. And everyone's just amazed because this guy's now lying. And he said, oh, he's okay, just wave. And he's on the ground.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's just doing this.
He's okay, just
And the
wave.
whole audience is in stitches laughing. And it's, again, because of calibration. You've seen what's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
You know this guy. He had
I
that.
didn't know him.
You didn't know him,
Right.
but you could see that as the audience was as the volunteers were responding to the first few suggestibility tests. This guy, he's just sort of.
Yeah.
So you can pick that up.
You
that
get to pick
hypnotic
up the
mask.
people who are responding quickly, unconsciously, but they're not overdoing it, which is
Right.
acting, right?
Yeah, whereas
people overdo it.
The
are going
opposite
beyond
of
what
that
you
would
say.
be, I remember in that show, and this is a normal thing. You see two girls, let's say, and they're looking at each other in the middle of a test, and they look
Yeah,
like this.
yeah.
You know they're getting sent back to the audience at
They're not
some point.
focusing.
Yeah.
It does require their focus. So I said routines for groups as well as individuals. Now, you need to develop abilities as a stage performer. So there's going to be some solid skills here. If you cannot hold someone's attention, you're going to suck as a performer.
So if you're Ken Sweatman,
Yeah, long stories that go nowhere and just have no real point. Not the best thing. You have to learn to use the entire stage. People who stand like stuck still like this. I saw a friend of MCA doing an amateur night at a comedy club, and his microphone was down here. He never adjusted it, never took it out, hunched down, stayed stock still for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And he didn't use the space. He didn't use his arms.
there
He
are
didn't-
some comedians who do that.
But
and
that's
they
their
put on-
shtick.
They put on a role like,
Stay right.
Yeah, so I was at my mother-in-law's.
Right.
Yeah, and they do stuff like that. But that's comedy. That's different than a stage hypnosis show
Which
is supposed to
ties
be
into-
entertaining because of the members on the
That's
stage.
it. You have to
not
have that
you.
charisma. You got to be larger than life
Yeah.
up there, and you have to develop microphone skills. You know, one guy I worked with, he'd hold the mic down here, and I had to keep pushing it up to his mouth,
Yeah.
and he'd get mad at
Oh,
me
yeah, you-
for
yeah.
adjusting it. Yeah,
You were, well, not were. I mean, you in the show that I'm talking about that we were reviewing and doing the director's cut notes
Right.
on. I mean, you used the microphone for so many different sound
effects and stuff. Yeah.
And you used, of course, used the stage and you were comedic, but always in a way that brought the comedy back to the people on stage, not you. It wasn't
Right,
you being
right.
funny. It was you using humor to make the whole
it's
show
derived
funny.
humor. It's they're the
Yes.
funny ones. I'm just pointing it back at
Yes,
them. Yeah,
you were
yeah.
dealing the humor out.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Now, develop good microphone skills. You taking courses like I took the Second City intermediate
Improv,
Improv.
right?
I didn't do the basic. They just put me right in the intermediate. Did it. Found it was reasonably good. But I got most of my chops for improvisation from doing theater sports. Me, Bob Gray, Gary Jones, and Kevin Frankoff. We were called the Beatles. And they'd say, "Please welcome Gary, Bob Gray, the Beatles," and the Stones would play. It makes
That's
no
hilarious.
sense.
Yeah.
And so they were afraid we were going to get sued by Paul McCartney. So we called ourselves not the Beatles.
Not the Beatles.
Changed our name.
That's like
but
Elon
we
Musk
went against kids
with
in
his flamethrower that he called not a flamethrower.
Not a flamethrower.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So we went against, other theater sports teams like Kids in the Hall. We never lost. We didn't do a lot of matches, but we never, ever lost.
You beat Kids in the Hall.
We got our chops by being on stage with improv. Now, is that a useful thing? Practicing being on stage, yes, it will get you comfortable. I'll give you an example. Asad Mekki, he did theater. He didn't do theater sports. He did the Second City classes. Now, who came out of Second City? We got John Candy, Catherine O'Hara. You've got John Belushi. Like all of these people came out of Second City, learned to improvise. Asad Mekki took the courses. He was also my basic hypnosis student, wowed everybody. Then he did the master hypnosis. Where is he now?
Oh, and then he did, but let's follow the line. So he did stage hypnosis for a lot of years on cruise ships.
On cruise ships.
When he was, he's still young. He's kind of my age, but when he was in his 30s or so, he was doing tons and tons of cruise. He had a blast. He loved going on cruise ships and doing shows.
Single
and he'd have
guy.
a few days off, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And now what's he doing?
Well, now he's Hip-Prov. Him and Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyway? They're the off-Broadway production. It's coming.
Mockery. Just a little bit famous.
Asad Mekki, one of my students, is now one of the most well-known hypnotists in the world, and he earned his chops. He built it from almost nothing.
And we're going to his show.
We're going to his show
in February 10th. It's going to be amazing.
Now, here's the problem for all of you, and we're rocketing here, but this is good.
Yes.
The stage hypnosis paradox.
Okay.
It's hard to get booked if you don't have experience, but you don't get experience without getting booked.
So how do you overcome that rock in a hard place?
You have to find ways of performing so you have something to show people. Now, it's easier now than it has ever been, because when I started out, you had to promo packs with 8x10 glossy photographs.
You had to invest a lot of money in printing.
Send a VHS tape to people so they could watch, which is how people saw me hypnotize.
Now you whip out your iPhone 4.
Yeah.
And
You're 4, yeah.
You make a video.
But that's I had to send out videos, and that's how Burger King saw me hypnotizing Alanis Morissette, like this sort of thing. But now it's easy. Like Chris said, whip out your iPhone. You can make videos. You can engineer a show with your families and friends and make it look like a stage show. You can work with real subjects. The point is, people want to see how you work with an audience, how good you are at getting the laughs and getting the response.
And this comes back to the idea of having a range of skills too, because if you only have stage hypnosis skills, maybe it's a good idea to master a couple of simple effects with a deck of cards.
Well,
because
that's
then you can wow people and you can still show off your entertainment skills and your control of an audience, right? And then cascade that into hypnosis.
Right, because a good stage hypnotist is equal parts hypnotist and entertainer. Yeah. So that's my next point. Learn a few mentalism or card effects that have a mind slant to them, because people will map it across, like you said, into the hypnosis. This will give you skills in working with people, too.
Michael C. Anthony teaches mentalism. And he teaches stage hypnosis, of course. So he's the go-to guy that we would recommend for all of this stuff.
Exactly.
When you want to specialize in either mentalism or stage hypnosis, Michael C. Anthony, Stage Hypnosis University. That's the place to go.
Yeah. And eliminate word whiskers from your speech.
I
watched a presenter, drove me nuts.
What do you mean like?
Because he just kept saying, right? He'd ask right after everything. So, okay, so we're going to do this, right?
So.
And the response is that if you want someone to whip that out of you, have someone watch you on video with you, and every time you do it, have them yell, right! Back at you.
Yeah.
So we're going to get some people up here, right?
Okay.
Right! Like, you've got to break those word whiskers.
Okay. Oh
yeah, I saw that in the great courses, the guy about astrophysics, whatever, and he would say, okay, at the end. But by the end of his speech, he just turned it. I just wanted to kill him. I wanted to drive my thumbs into his eyes. So, and he was a nice man. So learn don't mumble, speak clearly, enunciate, don't talk like an idiot.
Buddy. That makes me think about when we were teaching Foundations Live and, of course, the 5-day challenge. Often, we start off, the cards are not on the desk right now, the language cards.
Right.
We have this deck of hypnotic language cards. You can get them if you live in the United States, at least right now. We can sell them to you and ship them to the United States. They're like $8.95. They're really cheap.
Free shipping.
Otherwise, if you start our test drive to the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy, which is on our homepage, and you upgrade, you can get a deck of cards shipped to you anywhere. The key point here, though, is that when people are learning hypnotic language, it's very useful, the run-on sentence. This concept of a run-on sentence. And oftentimes people will say, how is that useful to me? Because I don't actually want to be a professional hypnotist. And one of the beautiful things is when you learn to slow down, and I'm modeling it a bit here right now. I'm not using hypnotic language, but I'm modeling the structure and the pacing of hypnotic language, never-ending sentences. Because when you do that, you quickly find that it's a simple thing to notice that all of those filler phrases drop out of your language.
Brilliant.
There is no more like, you're just simply talking to people and drawing in their attention. And when you can do that, and when you can learn to use a linkage like and to continue speaking in an interesting way and draw people into what you're saying, draw emotions out, give people suggestions, those filler phrases are gone and you seem much more powerful when you're talking in any environment.
Very strong.
Right. Very strong, very good. Brilliant.
This is good.
Yeah.
And notice, too, learn the nomenclature of hypnosis. Learn the terminology so you don't sound like an idiot. Oh, this thing where your hand floats in the air. No, it's got to be done properly. Don't copy other people. Develop your own style. Are you mystical? Are you authoritative? Are you comedic? What is the main way you're presenting yourself? What is your particular image? Like, how are you going to dress? Are you going to look like a wizard? In fact, I had a show once. It was built underneath a shopping mall. They had this theater thing down there. I did a show for this company, paid me a couple of $1,000. It was an easy gig. And they said, we want to have you back on Halloween. We're having a Halloween party here. I said, great. They said, we want to dress you up like a wizard with a robe and a pointed hat. My answer was, it's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
So you don't dress like a freaking idiot.
You have a rock star appeal. You're not going to dress up like a wizard on stage.
Right. Now, what are you going to look like on stage? And will you develop a stage name? We're going to come back on that point, but we have an important message, Chris.
We now bring you a special report from Hypno North in Meaford, Ontario.
Yeah, how are you tonight? Thanks again. Well, it's your old pal Brado here. And for once, I got some good news, which has been hard to come by up here in Grey County ever since winter and the horse and snow arrived back in August and still dug in like a tick on a clear patch of pale skin. Anyway, I got thinking I might just see if I could put together a hypnosis show myself, maybe gradually give up dairy farming completely. Happens to all dairy cattlemen eventually. After a lifetime of farming at a loss, we retire, sell the farm, and move into a big house in town with a whack of money in the bank. So it's a pretty good job in that. So I was reading up on some hypnosis stuff, watching Mike do a show online. I figured how effing hard can it be? So I was starting to make some notes on the old Windows 98 machine. There's a knock on the door and it's Duder. So I open the door, make the usual comments about his greasy mullet and that, and he's grinning in the grinnery like Jack the frickin' Grinner, and there's a lot of his baboon laughter going on too, so I let him in to find out what the deal is. It turns out Eddard's been working on a career in entertainment too, because he doesn't have a job or anything, unless you can get paid for spending most of your time doubled over your flying fist and that. So, turns out Eddard is just trying to get a band together and play Led Zeppelin songs, but he's as tone deaf as a lead pipe wrapped in a woolen blanket, so he gave up on that. But then he got this other great idea. You see, Eddard has some chains and a pair of handcuffs that his Uncle Lane and Aunt Vera used to play around with, if you take my meaning, and he figured he could learn to escape from them with a bit of practice and that, and it would naturally lead to a career as a famous escape artist. So he goes out to his shed to look for the shackles and cuffs. The wind catches the door, locks him in, and he starts yelling at Duder, which is about as effective as yelling at a stapler. And right now he's locked in and pounding on the door, which is as funny as hell. And what makes it hilarious is Duder and Eddard had planned to order a pizza from Domino's Pizza in Owen Sound and then watch a video of the Great Escape tonight at Eddard's place because he's such a dick. He didn't know it was a war movie, and Eddard had put a 2x4 a molten expert on ice to watch the VHS tape of the movie, but since Houdini's stuck in his shed, Duder and I are hanging out for the first time together ever. So it's been your old pal Brado speaking from Eddard's house on the iPhone 4 and saying thanks once again and good night.
All right, and we're back. So let's talk about, should you have a stage name?
Okay, if you do, make it memorable. You know, the amazing Kreskin. George Kresge changed his name to Kreskin. Mm-hmm. He's only got one name now. I was incredible Mike Mandel. That was on all my posters. Mm-hmm. And then another hypnotist came along who was a deck, and he became incredible. So, copied completely, but let that go. I'm not affected by it anymore. Ravine, the man they call Ravine. Everybody remember his name. Martin St. James. I'm not a huge fan of him, but the late Martin St. James. But it is a good stage name. It's got that sound to it.
He's Martin St. James.
Martin St. James. Tell all the world it's Martin St. Okay, stop. Develop your own pattern, your own lines. Don't do somebody else's act. Really, what makes you unique? Bring that to the stage with you. Create a good pre-talk. Some call it a lecture. It should be informative. It should be entertaining. And it's going to dispel any fears and myths like, what if I get stuck in hypnosis?
Yes, and when we bring you the director's cut, we will be putting the pre-talk portion of Mike's show for sure on YouTube for free for
but don't copy it.
everyone. It'll give you some ideas of how, it'll be useful because the content is very specific to your life.
Right, it is, yeah.
But the method, the reason behind the content is something you can absolutely model.
For sure. Now, create killer routines that are original. Two of the things I did for years, everybody does now. I don't care because I don't do it anymore. The roller coaster. Everybody on a roller coaster, like psychotic guy running it. The wallet, the person keeps giving me his wallet. Eventually it turns into a Star Trek communicator. He's screaming at Scotty to beam him up.
My favorite is when you use you'll give them the cue to have someone give the wallet.
That's the beginning of it.
Yes, and then it turns into he's giving you a non-existent wallet.
And he comes and gets it. I take a non-existent wallet and give it back to him.
That's my favorite.
That was accidentally in Texas. I missed it. The McDonald's drive-through. That's original material.
Well, now it's I love it because you'll see this routine if you get the full director's cut. But the basic story is you get a guy or anyone really, and you tell him he's very hungry, he hasn't eaten in a long time.
24
What's
hours,
his favorite fast food? Say he says McDonald's. Okay, he goes and now you play the order taker. You play the order taker and keep screwing up the guy's order.
And he's getting hungry and hungry and more furious.
Hilarious to watch him get frustrated and usually start swearing. The fast food drive-through thing.
Indeed. Now let's jump ahead to what about agents? Booking agents can be great if you can get one to even come and see your show. It's hard. So you've got to have stuff online that you can show people. Agents will give you a shot. Expect to pay anywhere from 15 to 30% in fees. The 30% is often, if you're doing keynotes and things, more, but 15, 20% of agent fees. They're getting you the work. They're making the calls. They should be doing something on your behalf.
Oh, buddy, we gotta say this then, because this is a fun little story about how you remember years ago when you fired a bunch of agents.
Yeah,
you had many agents.
I did.
Now tell that story about they kept you on their websites even though they wouldn't get you gigs anymore.
Oh yeah,
because you were getting all your gigs from a higher.
From
quality,
Speaker Spotlight.
Yeah, you were getting a lot of gigs from a
great
much
company,
higher quality agent at this point. And all these other agents
people I'd never met had me on their website as they were booking me. And so what happened was people would contact them. Oh, we need Mike Mandel on this date. Oh, okay, I'll check with him. Oh, he's busy that day, but here's who he recommends.
And they'd never even talk to you. They were lying to sell their other lesser skilled talent.
Well, that's the joke. How can you tell an agent's lying? His lips are moving. You know? But I had great agents too, like Martin Perlmutter at Speaker Spotlight, just a fabulous guy, did great work. Carol Brickenden got me great keynotes. An agent's going to cost you, but it is worth it. It's worth it if they're getting you work.
Yeah.
Now, they will do the contract. Make sure the contract is between you and the client. The agent facilitates this. Your contract is not with the agent. One guy was ripping me off for years. My contracts were with him. I found out later, as you know, he was selling it to the client for a different rate. I realized that's why he was always showing up at my shows. He didn't need to be there.
He wanted to get paid.
He wanted to be a buffer between me and the client, so I wouldn't ask any awkward questions.
It's sort of like when you put yourself in a, not from experience or anything, but you see these scenes where people seat themselves somewhere between a thing they're trying to hide and the person that might discover it.
For sure.
They want to distract.
And that was going on. Now, a directive agent... Sometimes you get a directive agent. What they will want is exclusivity. They won't want you to work with anyone but them. It can work if they're getting you enough work. Yeah. But some of them, they'll say, well, any gigs, take it to my directive agent. Well, other agents don't want to do that because they're splitting the commission then. So you have to be careful. If they get you a gig, any spinoff should go to them, to your agent who got you the gig. It's their right. You don't then work with the client secretly because they booked you once. They want to save the commission. No, you owe it legally and morally to the agent. Well, morally for sure, to the agent who got you the gig. They should be rebooking you.
Yeah.
But they do sometimes get lazy. I had a great agent who was an award-winning agent, got me a lot of work. And then one day we just did a little poll. I phoned every single person I'd worked with for the previous year and said, when you booked me, did an agent contact you or did you contact the agent? It was like 96% they had called the agent. The agent had become an order taker.
Yeah,
just sit there,
lazy,
take the order. That's not adding value. So
if your agent's just filling out an order form.
Now, what about a manager? Okay. Managers get lazy too. Be careful with managers. They have to have the same vision of your career that you have. I had one guy took over management for me, went through all the legal stuff with the entertainment lawyers, everything, 5-year contract, 2-year contract, whatever it was. And all it said he had to do was advise and counsel. That's it. So all of a sudden, he moved from this idea of me doing these shows. Oh, I want to put you in this outdoor mall in Ottawa, doing like French drop, making people's coins disappear. So he trying to turn me into a busker.
Yeah.
This was his brilliant idea. He'd taken my promo where it said $5,000 reward to anyone who can prove Mike Mandel uses any plants in the audience to,
Yeah.
Or he changed the word plants to decoys.
What the hell does
He
that
didn't
even
realize
mean?
a plant is the actual term for it. He just did this without telling me. But it got worse because I was working with another guy. They met secretly. We were in Philadelphia. I did a talk show there with Tony Randall. They had planned, we're going to move to LA, live on the cheap. We're going to break into comedy clubs. And I was going to be the straight man for this other guy. And then when we were known, I could do my hypnosis shows. I said, it's not going to happen. So that all fell apart November 19...
So he was making all these
1984.
plans in his head,
Yeah.
without even discussing
with
just
which this man
assuming
doesn't
you'd go
do.
along with it. Yeah, and that's
Right.
that's a really good point
Right.
because again, we want to make sure that our content is useful
Yes.
outside of the area that we're talking
For
about.
sure.
And think about any area of life, right? If Mike and I run a business together here, doing hypnosis and personal development, and all kinds of awesome
Trainings,
stuff.
yeah.
But I don't just make a decision and go, oh, yeah, well, of course, hey, Mike, let's do an online coaching program where you're on Zoom for 3 hours a day every single
Yeah.
day. It'll be
Or
great.
let's
It'll
move
be
to LA and
amazing.
live on the cheap. Yeah.
And you'll be like, not going to happen. So I understand. Here's the thing. Understand the values hierarchy of your business partner,
Right.
best friend, spouse, whatever the case may be.
Make sure you're on the same page.
Yeah.
Metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, like I know freedom and security
Are very high values with me. Yeah.
So I'm not going to go to him and say, "Oh, you value freedom. Let's spend 4 hours a day on Zoom
Oh, yeah.
together."
One of my agents, one agent/manager years ago, was booking me. I was doing the space show over and over and over.
Yeah.
And I was getting paid $150 a week, no matter how many shows I did. And he'd point
No
out,
matter how many fixed
and
rate.
he pointed out
Ooh.
that I was making 50% more than I was at Bell Canada. And I get to be on stage and wowing all these teenagers and stuff. But he'd say, "Oh, we got 6 shows this week." And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm making like $25 a show.
What the hell
It's
is
like,
that?
what?
That's just
So
insane.
that all fell apart. He was a nice guy, but we did not
man.
agree. Now, stay in control of your own career and ask questions. That's where I so appreciate what Asad Meki's doing. He's got his wife, Sarah, involved. She's a sharp, smart
Mm-hmm.
woman, and she looks out for him to make sure he's not getting dominated by
Yeah.
anybody in the industry and is going to be able to do what he wants to do. All performers, you notice how we're ramping it up. We're getting everything in. All performers need media exposure, all of them. I did hundreds of radio, TV, newspaper, magazine interviews, tons and tons of them.
And nowadays, you can control a lot of your own exposure
Yes.
using social media. I mean,
That's
it
it.
makes sense to be on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. Put
Brilliant.
your stuff out there. You'll see we're doing this too. Like, obviously, we don't need to have Mike on TV or whatever the case may be anymore, but we'll distribute our content across all these different social media platforms. Right.
That's it. And TV appearances, radio appearances can go a long way for you. So if you can get them, they can be great. But here's the thing. It's the same as having a press agent. I've worked with them. You have a publicist works for you, a publicitist. A publicist will work for you. But you have to have something to promote. It has to be an upcoming event that's big. And they'll hit all the media and do all, it can be pricey, but they can get you a big audience for an important event, whether it's radio spots or whatever they're giving you to further your career. You've got to have something to present. A friend of mine is very, very good in NLP and contacted me. I had a meeting with him and he said, "Do you think I need a publicist?" And he was there with this woman. I didn't know she was a publicist. And I spent half an hour talking about how it'd be a complete waste of time for him. And then found out that's why.
At least you gave an
But I
unbiased
said,
answer.
you have to have something to publicize. It's not just, oh, here's this guy.
Yeah.
There has to be an event. Okay, in conclusion,
All right.
you like this. A career in stage hypnosis can be rewarding and fun. But there's some important things I said too, but there's more important things to keep in mind if you decide to become a professional or semi-professional stage hypnotist. Keep learning, keep getting better. When I was first on television, January 29, 75, I saw myself on a rerun 2 years later, and I almost puked. It was so poor what I did. I won't even tell you how bad it was. I'll tell you over lunch today when we go to Colonel Bastards.
I know, but the bottom line is keep getting better no matter what you're doing. This applies to everything. You look back to our first podcast. We had to re-record the intro years later.
Terrible.
Like, hi, this is Mike and Chris. This is the Brain Software Podcast. We're going to talk about hypnosis and stuff. Like, horrible.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Here's another one. Don't take yourself too seriously, and don't be your own biggest fan.
Or we'll give you a dick chant.
It's dickish. Let the audience say you're great. Don't tell them yourself.
Dick.
Be a semi-pro. Keep your day job at first until your hypnosis shows are making more money.
You don't have to risk your house. Yeah.
Right. Now, you don't. When you quit your day job, you don't have to go crazy, make a big deal, like send your boss a thing of dead flowers.
Nail the resignation letter to the door.
Or go and urinate on his desk or something. I mean, there's limits. Be a semi-pro first. Keep your day job. When you're making substantially more in your hypnosis career, then you can gently quit from that.
Be classy about it.
Right. And finally, don't trash talk other performers. Don't rip other performers apart. Everybody does it. I did it in the early days. It's not a good idea.
Oh, yeah, you did it
It gets
in the early
back
days.
to them, and who needs enemies? You'll win more friends with honey than with vinegar.
Yeah, that's
although
what
I
my
like
mom always
vinegar.
used to say. You'll get more flies with honey than vinegar.
Yeah, who wants flies?
I don't want flies.
So the
but
bottom line is
metaphor
be a
works.
nice guy or a nice woman.
Right.
Build bridges, and it will come back on you.
All right, so we're going to wrap up, and here's what we're going to tell you.
Well, no, you're going to do the empowering question.
Oh, okay. Well, before I do the empowering question, I'll just mention that the pre-wrap up is if you want to master hypnosis, you can decide where you want to go after you get the foundational training. So similarly, if you are becoming a doctor, you go to medical school, you become a general practitioner of medicine before you become a surgeon or a skin, what do you call a skin specialist?
Dermatologist.
A dermatologist,
Senior's
thank you.
moment.
You get the idea, right? Or you become a lawyer before you become a specialist in contract law or intellectual property law or whatever the case may be. So if you want to become a master of the general principles of hypnosis, there's no better place than the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy, and it's totally free to get started. And then you can decide, hey, I really like this entertainment stuff. I'm going to Stage Hypnosis University with Michael C. Anthony or whatever else it is that you want to do. So
It's a huge
let's
field.
get
There's
to
a lot of opportunity
let's
out
go to
there
the
still.
empowering question. All right. Ask yourself, is a career in hypnosis something I've even considered? I mean, seriously considered. And is it a possible move in the right direction to change the entire course of my life? Wow.
We got no metaphor. We got nothing. Got no meta 5. We got
It's
no
been a
ending.
long
It's been a
podcast.
long one. So
All right.
let's just end it by saying
Thanks
once again, and
good night.